Family said I was too stupid to succeed, and laughed when I left home at 18. You'll be back in a week, they mocked. Months later they were speechless when I still remember the way they laughed. I stood in the doorway with a single duffel bag slung over my shoulder, my heart hammering so hard I thought they might hear it. My father leaned back in his chair, shaking his head in amusement. My mother smirked as she took a slow sip of her coffee. And my older brother, always the first to twist the knife, chuckled so hard he nearly fell off the couch. You'll be back in a week, he said, wiping a tear from his eye. Maybe less. A week? My mother scoffed. Give him 3 days before he's calling, begging to come home. I swallowed hard, refusing to let them see how much it hurt. I had spent my entire life being told I was nothing. That I was too dumb, too weak, too pathetic to make it on my own. Every dream I'd ever had was met with ridicule. Every effort I made was dismissed as a joke. And yet, here I was, about to prove them all wrong. Good luck out there, my father added, his voice dripping with condescension. You won't last. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, stepped over the threshold, and walked out into the night. I never looked back. The cold night air bit at my skin as I stepped off my parents' porch, my duffel bag digging into my shoulder. I didn't have a car. I didn't have any savings. What little money I had earned from odd jobs had conveniently gone to the family. Over the years, I had no job lined up, no apartment waiting for me, no safety net. But I had one thing: freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trapped under their roof, listening to their endless taunts about how I'd never amount to anything. The thought gave me enough courage to keep walking, even though I had nowhere to go. I took the bus into the next town over, using the last of my cash on the ticket. It was a quiet ride, just a few other passengers, an old man nodding off, a tired-looking woman staring blankly out the window. I sat in the back, gripping the strap of my bag, wondering what the hell I was going to do next. I had no friends to crash with. My parents had made sure of that, controlling every aspect of my life so I never got too close to anyone. No relatives either. Anyone who might have taken me in had long since cut contact with my family, fed up with their selfishness and cruelty. I got off the bus in a town I barely knew and walked until I found an old, rundown motel. The flickering neon sign read, "Rooms $25 a night." Cheaper than most, but still more than I could afford for long. I paid for a single night and collapsed onto the creaky bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Reality hit me like a freight train. I was alone. No plan. No backup. This was what they wanted. They wanted me to fail, to crawl back and admit they were right. I refused. I gritted my teeth and sat up. If I wanted a life of my own, I was going to have to fight for it. That night I barely slept. By sunrise I was back on my feet, ready to take whatever work I could find. I knocked on doors, restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, asking if anyone was hiring. Most didn't even look up as they muttered, "Not hiring." Others laughed in my face, probably seeing the desperation in my eyes. Then, at a dingy little diner on the edge of town, I got lucky. The owner, a gruff man named Carl, eyed me up and down as I asked for work. "You got any experience?" "No," I admitted, "but I'll do anything. Clean tables, scrub floors, take out the trash. I just need a chance." Carl sighed and rubbed his chin. "You willing to start right now?" "Yes." And just like that, I had my first job. It wasn't much, minimum wage, long hours, no respect from the regulars, but it was a start. I spent the next few weeks scrubbing grease off kitchen floors, washing dishes until my fingers pruned, and hauling bags of garbage out to the alley. It was brutal work, but I didn't care. Every dollar I earned was mine. I crashed at the motel for as long as I could afford it, then moved into the cheapest room I could find, a tiny, roach-infested apartment with peeling wallpaper and a broken heater. I had nothing but a mattress on the floor and a second-hand lamp, but it was mine. And every single day, I reminded myself, I am never going back. The days blurred together, long shifts at the diner, aching feet, greasy clothes that never felt fully clean. The pay was garbage, barely enough to keep me afloat, but I made it stretch. No eating out, no unnecessary spending. Every spare dollar went towards something that would push me forward. And then, one night, I got a reminder of why I could never stop. I was walking home from work, exhausted but satisfied that I'd made it through another shift, when my phone buzzed. I barely used it, only had it for emergencies, but the name on the screen made my stomach twist. Mom. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something in me needed to hear what she had to say. I answered, keeping my voice flat. What? There was a pause, then a dramatic sigh. Oh, so now you're too good to check in with your family? I clenched my jaw. Family. That word meant nothing coming from her. I've been busy, I said simply, kicking at a loose rock on the sidewalk. Well, we were just wondering if you were done with this little stunt yet, she said, her voice thick with amusement. It's been, what? A month? You have to be struggling by now. I didn't answer. You know, your father said you wouldn't last. I bet you're eating out of trash cans. She laughed, like the image of me starving was entertaining. If you beg, maybe we'll let you come home. The words made my skin crawl. Not happening. Oh, come on. You don't have to prove anything. You were never meant for this kind of life. That was it. The breaking point. I smiled to myself, even though she couldn't see me. You know what? You're right. There was a pause. What? I wasn't meant for this life. I repeated, letting the words sink in. I was meant for something better. Then I hung up. That phone call became my fuel. I worked harder than ever, picking up extra shifts, saving every cent. But I knew working in a diner wouldn't get me where I wanted to be. I needed a real way forward. I spent every spare moment teaching myself skills I'd never had the chance to learn. I borrowed old textbooks from the library. I watched online tutorials in my freezing apartment, scribbling down notes until my fingers ached. Programming. Business. Finance. I didn't have a college education. I didn't have connections. But I had something better, a hunger to prove everyone wrong. The months passed, and I started to see a way out. One night, after an exhausting double shift, I sat in my apartment, staring at the numbers on my bank app. I had just enough saved to take a risk. And I was ready. I was going to build something they could never have imagined. By the time winter rolled around, I had saved every extra penny I could. My apartment was still a dump, my meals were mostly instant noodles and discount bread, and I hadn't bought new clothes since I left home. But I didn't care. Every sacrifice had a purpose. I was ready to make my first move. I had spent months learning about online businesses, reading about stocks, real estate, and side hustles. I knew I couldn't afford college, and I sure as hell wasn't going to waste years working dead-end jobs just to survive. I needed a way to turn what little I had into something real. And I found it. Late one night, sitting on the floor of my apartment with my laptop balanced on an old milk crate, I launched my first online store. It wasn't glamorous. Just a small e-commerce shop selling custom phone cases, something I had researched and found had a solid profit margin. I designed them myself using free software, outsourced the printing to a manufacturer, and started running ads with the little money I had saved. The first few weeks were brutal. No sales, no traffic, nothing. But I didn't stop. I studied every ad campaign, adjusted my approach, tweaked my product descriptions, learned everything I could about marketing and consumer psychology. And then, one sale. Then another. And another. Before I knew it, my store was bringing in a small but steady stream of income. It wasn't enough to quit my diner job, but it was something. Something that was mine. That success gave me confidence. If I could sell phone cases, what else could I do? I reinvested every dollar I made. I started another store, this time selling fitness accessories. Then I jumped into flipping domain names, buying undervalued website addresses and reselling them for profit. I took the little money I had left and started putting it into stocks, following the market like a hawk. I bet everything on myself. And it worked. By the time summer came around, I wasn't just scraping by anymore. I was making real money. I quit the diner. Walked in one morning, handed Carl my apron, and thanked him for the opportunity. He grunted, nodded, and patted me on the back. That was the closest thing to respect I had gotten in months. Then I moved out of my rundown apartment and into something better. It wasn't a mansion, but it was clean, warm, and had an actual bed instead of a mattress on the floor. I should have been happy. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because now, it was time to go back. Not to stay. Not to beg for approval. No, I was going back to show them exactly what they had lost. I didn't rush it. Success is best served slow, deliberate, unstoppable. By the time I was truly ready, I had built something they could never have imagined. Multiple income streams, smart investments, and a business that was scaling faster than I ever thought possible. And the best part? They had no idea. I hadn't spoken to my family since that last phone call with my mother. No updates, no breadcrumbs to track my progress. To them, I was probably still working some dead-end job, barely scraping by. So when I made my move, I wanted it to be loud. I started small, buying a few properties in my old town under an LLC, quietly acquiring businesses that were struggling. One of them? The auto shop my father swore would never hire me. I didn't just buy it. I owned it outright. And once the ink was dry, I made sure they knew. The announcement went up in the local paper, just a small blurb. Local investor acquires long-standing auto shop. But in a town like ours, word spread fast. And I knew exactly who would read it. I could already picture their faces. My father, gripping his coffee cup a little too hard. My mother, squinting at the article like the words might change if she stared long enough. My brother, probably laughing at first, until he realized it wasn't a joke. And that was just the beginning. It didn't take long for the calls to start. At first, they were subtle, my mother texting, "Hope you're doing well," like she hadn't mocked me the last time we spoke. My brother tried too, sending a casual, "Hey, long time no see." I ignored them both. Then, the tone changed. A week after the newspaper announcement, my father finally called. I let it ring, smirking as I imagined him pacing, trying to figure out what to say. When he called again, I picked up, just to hear the disbelief in his voice. "You bought the auto shop?" No hello. No small talk. Straight to the point. "Yes." A pause. Then forced laughter. "What the hell do you know about running a business?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at the framed ownership papers on my desk. "Enough to buy yours next." Silence. That was the moment it hit him. I wasn't the pathetic, desperate kid he expected to come crawling back. I was the one holding the power now. I let the silence stretch before adding, "I told you I wouldn't fail." Then I hung up. That was only the first hit. The next one? That would leave a scar. After that call, I knew the real fun was about to begin. For the first time in my life, they were the ones chasing me. My mother tried again a few days later, leaving a voicemail filled with fake warmth. "We should all get together. It's been so long." As if the last time we spoke, she wasn't laughing at the idea of me failing. Then came my brother, texting me like we were old friends. "Hey, heard you've been doing well. Maybe we should catch up sometime." I ignored them both. But my father? He wasn't one for sweet talk. He showed up. I was at the auto shop one morning, going over paperwork with my manager, when I heard a familiar voice at the front desk. "I want to speak to the owner." I stepped out of the office and there he was, my father, standing in a building with my name on the deed. He looked around like he barely recognized the place. The shop had been struggling before I took over, run into the ground by poor management and outdated practices. In just a few months, I turned it around, new equipment, an updated business model, real marketing. Profits were up, and the town was talking. He finally turned to me. His expression was unreadable, but I could see it in his eyes. He hated that I was here. That I had built something without him. "You got lucky," he muttered. I smiled. "No, I worked." He exhaled sharply. "So what now?" You just ignore your family? I raised an eyebrow. That's funny. You didn't seem too concerned about family when you bet I'd come crawling back. His jaw tightened. That's not. I cut him off. What do you want? He hesitated. Just for a second. And that's when I knew. He wasn't here to congratulate me. He was here because he needed something. The shop wasn't the only thing I had been quietly buying up. I had kept my eye on other businesses in town, including my father's. His company had been bleeding money for years, barely staying afloat. I knew it. He knew it. And now, he was desperate. Things have been tight, he admitted, choosing his words carefully. I thought maybe we could work something out. I tilted my head. You mean you want my help? He clenched his teeth. He hated admitting it. I just figured since you're doing well now, you'd be willing to. No. The word was sharp, final. His face hardened. You think you're better than us now? I shook my head. No. I just finally see you for what you are. He opened his mouth to argue, but I wasn't interested. Good luck, I said, walking back to my office. You'll need it. I didn't look back, but I knew the truth. This was only the beginning. After that encounter, I expected them to back off. They didn't. When I ignored my father's request for help, my mother swooped in next. She called, texted, even showed up at the shop once, her voice dripping with forced concern. We just want to talk, she said. We're still family. I almost laughed. Family? Where was that family when they laughed at me? Where was that family when they told me I was too stupid to succeed? But I was patient. I knew something they didn't. I was about to take away the last thing they had. See, while they were busy scrambling, I was making moves. My father's business, the one he built his entire identity around, was on its last legs. And I was the one holding the knife. Through another LLC, I put in an offer to buy the building his company operated out of. The owner had been trying to sell for months, and my offer? Too good to refuse. Once the papers were signed, I made my move. I sent him the eviction notice myself. It was brutal. Legally airtight. 30 days to vacate, no extensions, no negotiations. I didn't have to wait long for the explosion. 2 days later, he barged into my office, red-faced and shaking. You think this is funny? He spat, slamming the letter onto my desk. I leaned back in my chair, calm. I think it's business. You don't understand what you're doing. His voice wavered, his confidence crumbling. You're ruining me. I smiled. Now you know how it feels. For the first time in my life, I saw something I never thought I'd see in his eyes. Fear. He wasn't in control anymore. I was. And I had one last thing to say. I told you I'd never come crawling back. Then I stood up, walked past him, and left him alone in my office, holding the evidence of his own downfall. I thought that would be the end of it. That once my father realized he had lost, he'd finally slink away in defeat. I underestimated his pride. A week after the eviction notice, I got another call, this time from my brother. He hadn't bothered reaching out in months, not when I was struggling, not when I was building my business. But now he suddenly cared. Look, man, he started, his voice unnaturally friendly. I know things have been rough between us, but this is Dad we're talking about. You can't just take everything from him. I raised an eyebrow. Everything? Yeah, he said, like I was the villain in all this. The business is all he's got. Just give him more time. I let out a slow breath. They still didn't get it. I'm not giving him anything, I said coldly. Just like he never gave me anything. There was a long pause. Then, in a quieter voice, my brother muttered, Mom's worried about him. That almost made me laugh. Worried? About the man who mocked me my entire life? Who laughed when I walked out the door? I shook my head. Not my problem. You're serious? His voice was tight with frustration now. You're really going to let him lose everything? Yes. Because that's exactly what he deserved. He sighed, clearly realizing he wasn't going to change my mind. You know what? You've changed, man. Success got to your head. I smiled. No. I just finally learned how to stop being their doormat. I hung up. But I wasn't done yet. If they thought I was going to stop at just evicting my father, they were dead wrong. I wanted them to feel what I felt. The humiliation. The powerlessness. The hopelessness of having your future ripped away. So I did one last thing. I reached out to a few investors, people who had been circling my father's company like vultures, waiting for the right moment. I made them an offer. I would help them acquire what was left of his failing business. Within 2 weeks, the deal was done. My father wasn't just losing his building. He was losing everything. And when the news broke, the whole town knew. People whispered. Some pitied him. Others called it karma. And me? I didn't say a word. Not until he called me. It was the middle of the night when my phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, my father's name glowing against the darkness. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. There was silence at first, just heavy breathing. Then, finally, in a voice I barely recognized, he said, "Are you happy now?" I closed my eyes, letting the words settle. Then I smiled. Yes. And I hung up. After that call, I expected to feel something: guilt, regret, maybe even satisfaction. But all I felt was peace. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. No more proving myself. No more chasing approval that was never going to come. No more them. I had won. Not just in business, not just financially. I had won because I didn't need them anymore. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that my parents had left town. My father, too ashamed to face the people who had once admired him, packed up and disappeared. My mother followed. My brother, once so smug, kept his head down. And me? I thrived. I never looked back. They bet I would crawl home in a week. Instead, I buried them in my dust. And it felt incredible.